The point I'm trying to make is once we get to a place where asset prices clear, the increase in purchasing power of gold and silver are going to be far greater than 99.9% of the people out there have even dreamed of. And I'm going to tell you, any any uh, projection that you've seen for the price of gold or the price of silver is going to be too low.
Too low. Yeah.
Any
Yeah.
projection you've heard of already is too low.
Bill Holter, a former Wall Street manager, believes that once asset prices stabilize and become apparent, the purchasing power of gold and silver will far exceed most people's expectations. He emphasizes that existing price projections for these precious metals are insufficient and likely too conservative, suggesting significant future upside potential for gold and silver. In a recent interview, Holter expressed concerns about central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, viewing them as a tool that could be used to control and enslave the population. In a system reliant on CBDCs, authorities could quickly shut off individuals' accounts, exerting immense control over financial transactions and personal wealth. To safeguard against these potential risks, Holter stresses the importance of having alternative assets like gold and silver that do not depend on digital systems and can be relied upon for spending, trading, and preserving value. Holter firmly believes that gold and silver cannot be bankrupted, particularly in a world facing widespread financial distress. As governments accumulate excessive debt and undergo bankruptcy, fiat currencies may lose their purchasing power rapidly. In contrast, precious metals like gold and silver historically retain their value over the long term, serving as a hedge against currency devaluation and financial turmoil. Addressing China's gold reserves, Holter suggests that the country holds far more gold than it officially declares. Given the pivotal role of gold reserves in determining a nation's financial strength and influence, this hidden reserve could have significant implications for the global economic power balance. Notably, China has been adding to its gold reserves for 8 consecutive months, driven by economic and geopolitical risks and a desire to reduce dependence on the US dollar. The Chinese central bank acquired 1,448 tons of gold between 2002 and 2019, but it only reported once resuming in November 2022. Speculation persists that China may hold several thousand tons of gold off the books in a separate entity called the State Administration for Foreign Exchange, SAFE, as previously highlighted by Jim Rickards. During tough economic times when conventional currencies lose value, Holter suggests turning to silver coins, particularly those with 90% silver content, known as junk silver in the US. These coins are valuable because they contain real silver, which has maintained its value over time, unlike fiat money, which can depreciate significantly. Now watch excerpts from Bill Holter's interview with the Market Sniper. Before we start, smash that subscribe button and remember to enable post notifications to stay updated on our latest uploads. Thank you and enjoy the video.
That with the central bank digital currencies, that is, it's a way to enslave the population. For instance, the conversation you and I are having today would get our accounts shut off. And they have the ability to do that with a central bank digital currency. So it's important to not have to have something other than a digital currency that you'll be able to rely on, use, spend, trade. Just understand that with gold and silver, they cannot bankrupt. And the problem today is the world is going through a bankruptcy. And when all is said and done, we're going to look back and say, holy cow, governments went bankrupt and took the value of currencies with the bankruptcy of the governments. So the whole theory behind gold and silver, they're the only monies on the planet that cannot bankrupt in a bankrupting world. There's no question China has far more gold than what they officially say. I mean, I could have 5 years ago, I could have shown you on the back of a napkin that China had over 25,000 tons. Just look at what they imported year after year, plus the 400 tons per year that they mine that does not leave the country. I mean, they are the biggest holder of gold in the world. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And we talked about currency being backed but not convertible. That's the equivalent of the woman who walks into the ballroom with this big, gigantic, beautiful necklace. Everybody looks at it and adores it. And that's what happens with currencies. Countries, individuals, again, we're talking about confidence. and he who has the gold makes the rules. They all of a sudden come forth and say, look, here's how much gold we have, show us how much gold you have. And then the Western nations, don't have even close to what they've accumulated. I did this math, I'm thinking it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago when the US debt was 23 trillion. I did the math, and if you took the amount of gold that the US claims that we have, the 8,300 tons, and you divided it into the debt at the time, gold would have to be $125,000 per ounce to pay off our national debt. So here we are, the debt now is what, 50% higher. So now you're talking of a number, a couple $100,000 per ounce, and that's assuming we actually have the gold. And I wouldn't assume that. The way I see it is, in a system down scenario, you were going to get to the most basic of basics. And the most basic of basics is silver coin. And in the US, it would be junk silver because it's the smallest denomination of silver. I just think that once this thing goes belly up, and again, whether it's 2 weeks or 2 months or 6 months, or God forbid more than that, we're going to go through a period of time that really the only things that are going to work are the most basic of basics.
Holter expresses concern that the financial system is heading for a crisis. He points out that rising interest rates have led to massive debt service for the U.S. Treasury, nearing $1 trillion a year. It'll be challenging for the government to generate such revenue during bad times. This could result in a financial implosion, where paper assets lose all value, leading to a loss of confidence in the system. The BRICS countries have been pursuing various initiatives to decrease their dependence on the dollar. Over the past year, Russia, China, and Brazil have used more non-dollar currencies in their cross-border transactions. Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates are actively exploring dollar alternatives. And central banks have sought to shift more of their currency reserves away from the dollar and into gold. Holter stresses that de-dollarization has already begun, and some reports suggest that certain countries may announce gold-backed currencies. Such currencies may initially be digital, used for trade settlement between nations, similar to how the euro started before transitioning to physical currency notes later on. Holter believes alternative currencies offered by the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, provide a cleaner and more appealing option than traditional currencies. Top of form. Let's get back to the interview.
And at this point, the financial system is running headfirst into a brick wall. And when I say headfirst into a brick wall, because they've raised interest rates, the debt service, and just look at the U.S. Treasury. The U.S. Treasury now is approaching $1 trillion a year in debt service. Where do they get that $1 trillion a year from? Especially during bad times if tax revenues are declining. So they're going to have a system that's up and running, and you have a system that looks like it's running directly into a financial implosion where literally everything paper is worth nothing. And that leads to the last thing, it leads to confidence. Now, yes, an implosion, you're going to have some people say to the government, please save me. And then you're going to have other people that are self-sufficient and have a clue as to what has happened. They're going to say, piss on you. So this is not going to be as easy or as simple to put a digital currency in place because, think about the heartland of America. Do you really believe that they're going to take and use digital currency or their phones for every transaction? I don't think so. The de-dollarization process, without a doubt, has already started. Now, the only reports that I've seen where they're going to announce a currency, a gold-backed currency, came from RT. It's not been confirmed by China. It's not been confirmed by Russia. It came from RT News. And you do have to admit, RT has been a better news source than any of the mainstream media. Now, that said, my guess is they will talk about a currency. They may or may not mention gold. I believe they will mention commodities, in other words, hard assets, as backing for the currency. And what I think is going to happen is what happened with the euro originally. If you remember back before the year 2000, the euro was strictly a digital currency. It was used for trade settlement and only used between nations. And then, what was it, 2003 or four? I can't remember. But then they actually came out with currency notes, and all of the countries switched all of their local currencies into euros, and thus it began. And I think that's the model probably that the BRICS are going to use. Initially, it will just be a digital currency used between nations strictly to settle trade. And at a later date, it could be a year from now, it could be 5 years, could be 7 or 10 years from now, there will be BRICS, a BRICS currency that's used in the streets. Now, whether that's digital or paper, I don't know. I suspect they're going to want to do digital too, because they're governments and they want to control the people just like the Western governments do. It's all about confidence. Currency has always been about confidence. And you mentioned, the BRICS, you got these bad eggs in a basket. Those bad eggs in a basket are far better than a basket with the egg that's broken, and the egg that's been a thief and a bully all over the world for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's an alternative, and it's a cleaner alternative.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
as the world becomes more interconnected and the financial system becomes more complex, people will look for safe and reliable ways to store their money. Gold and silver offer these qualities and will become even more valuable. Do you think gold and silver will become more valuable in the future? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you found this video informative, remember to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and enable notifications to stay informed about our latest videos on silver, gold, and copper. Thank you for watching, and we appreciate your support.